Hi, it's Amy, and I'm here once again with the Journal of Emily Shore. We are on page 113, beginning chapter 7, and we are beginning on July 21st, 1835. This afternoon, while Mamma and I were sitting here, Mackworth called us to look at a hummingbird hawk moth, Macroglossa stellatarum sphingina cecidae. We came and watched it for a few minutes with much interest. It darted very rapidly with a loud hum from flower to flower, and as it came to eat without alighting, unfurled its long, slender trunk and sucked the honey, itself suspended in the air, spreading out its tail and white tufts on its sides. In the rapidity and yet steadiness of its movements, it is unlike any lepidodorous insect that I know. It did not seem at all disturbed by our presence, and even almost touched us at times. July 22nd, Wednesday. I was pleased at finding one or two moths. One was the brown tail, Porthesia oriflua, Bomsinia arcatidae. It is very pretty, of a snowy white with very downy legs and body. The antenna doubly fringed. The tail is a yellow-brown. I brought it home alive and put it under a glass. July 23rd, Thursday. Mrs. Harvey very kindly asked Mamma to bring us all some day to Ickwell, that she might take us to see Warden, Lord Ungley's place. At 5, the whole party went to Warden, which is a mile and a half distant, to see the garden which was laid out by Lord Ungley himself, and is a very curious place. In the opinion of most people, very beautiful, but I do not myself like it. The extent, I believe, is 7 acres. It is full of little hills and mounds, covered with trees, shrubs, and flowers. Here and there are arbors shaded by ivy and clematis. In some places are little hollows surrounded by artificial rocks. In others are subterranean paths, besides railings, hedges, ponds, white tents, enclosures for birds, etc. Over the whole are scattered white statues and painted lamps, some on stands, others hanging from lofty arches which join the mounds. The principal object is the Swiss cottage, which is surmounted by a gilded pill, on which stands a dove of white stone. What I liked best was the conservatory. We entered a subterraneous passage at the end of which is a little polygonal chamber, curtained all round with red and white, and carpeted with colored sheepskin. The conservatory runs out from each side at right angles with the passage, and has a glass roof rising above the ground. The whole of this garden is in very bad taste, and much too artificial. The mounds and risings are not natural. The ornaments, such as vases, statues, lamps, arches, etc., are altogether out of place. Even the Swiss cottage is ill-imagined, and the quantity of linen furniture in the arbors and tents looks ridiculous. In winter it must look most cheerless. In short, considering the thousands that have been laid out on it, it is surprising that so little has been made out of the garden. July 24, Friday. Mr. Charles Austell caught 2 very pretty lizards of different species, which I will describe. The largest looks 4 inches and a half long. The head is very like a snake's, flat, and covered with little plates of various shapes. The eyes are not disagreeably prominent, as in most lizards, but are very beautiful, being bright and expressive, hazel with a black pupil. The general color of the creature is green, scaly like a snake. Along the back runs an uninterrupted black line. The sides are dark, with a ridge of white dots above and below them. The tail is half the length of the whole lizard, and consists of a great many joints or rings, fitted one into the other, like those of a mare's tail. Each joint is composed of many little pieces placed side by side, and it ends with a curious conical process. The legs are 4, each with 5 toes tipped with claws. Sometimes it raises itself up on its 4 feet, resting on the tips of its claws. I cannot see the under part of its body. Its motion is a swift run. The expression of its face is thoughtful and intelligent. July 25, Saturday. My brown-tail moth, which last Wednesday I put under a glass, has laid several eggs, and wrapped them in fur, which she pulled off from her own downy tail. From July 27 to 30 is taken up with an account of a driving excursion to St. Albans, visiting Ampthill, Woburn Abbey, Dunstable Church, Lutton. The description of parks, houses, and churches is very minute, but only 2 passages will be extracted. And so here is Dunstable Church. The west front has some noble Roman arches, the mouldings of which are exquisite for richness and variety, exceeding any of those at Ely. The whole surface of the front is worked in a pattern so very elegant that though I have sketched it regularly in my book, I cannot help putting it here. And it says in a note here, the pattern is copied in the margin, a frequent practice with her. Unfortunately, not reproduced in the book for us. There is a singular arch by the door, half of which is Norman, half Early English. The interior is not so striking. The nave is Norman, the rest mostly perpendicular. And perpendicular is capitalized here, and it's come up several times in the entry so far. So certainly perpendicular here is referring to a style of architecture. July 29, Wednesday. The Abbey Church, St. Albans. It is a very large building, exceeding in size most churches and many cathedrals, certainly Rochester. It has also possessed very remarkable beauty and magnificence, but is now in a miserable state of dilapidation. For 2 years, no church service has been performed in it, and a subscription has just been raised for repairing it sufficiently to keep it from falling altogether. If not only this were done, but if also money could be procured for the sole purpose of improving it by taking down the numerous incongruous additions that have been made to it, it would be restored to something like its original beauty. If farther, the many parts of it now defaced and destroyed were faithfully restored, St. Albans Abbey Church would rank among the finest of our sacred edifices. Even now, though a patchwork of many unharmonizing styles, though ruined, imperfect, and clogged up with modern screens, it is very fine as a whole and requires minute attention to its details, which are of singular excellence. The plan is uncommon in an English cathedral, such in point of size it may be considered, but very general to those of France. It consists of a nave, a central tower, transepts, a choir, a space behind the choir, called at St. Albans the presbytery, and at the end the Lady Chapel. The aisles of the choir are continued along the space behind it, which was originally entered through the aisle arches and communicated by a door with the Lady Chapel. But at present these arches are blocked up with screens, and the way into the Lady Chapel is likewise closed. The screens of St. Albans, as well as everywhere else, are the bane of all effect. One, as usual, separates the choir from the nave, and the nave itself is divided across by another, which has neither use nor meaning. Not but that all these screens are in themselves very beautiful. I shall say more about them elsewhere. August 9, Sunday. In the evening I walked to the heath to see some poor people of the name of Betts, whom I sometimes teach a little. They are miserably poor and live in a mud cottage built by the man himself and containing only 2 rooms for themselves and 6 children. The man can read and is tolerably intelligent. The woman is deplorably ignorant and knows nothing whatever of the doctrines of Christian religion, so that she requires the simplest instruction. Another family of the same name, of the name of Barford, lives close by. These also I sometimes go to see. They are a very cleanly, industrious, worthy couple. They have just lost a daughter of decline, whom I used to go and read to sometimes while still ill. She died July 20. I saw her corpse the next day. It was a very affecting and melancholy sight. It was the first I have seen. The deadly pale of the countenance and the whiteness of the lips and the unmoving look give a dead body a very ghastly appearance. And I think we'll leave it there for today's reading, with that image of a ghastly dead body, which, in a few years herself here, she too will decline as that young woman did.